Sean Briley is the director of the Coronado Public Library, which is directly across the bay from downtown San Diego, by the way. It's only 12 minutes from my house, and I live in La Mesa. We forget how close Coronado is to us and the amazing resources there are on the island. In 2016, Sean was named a Library Journal Mover and Shaker for introducing innovative programs into libraries, including a community biology lab, projects that crowdsource library patrons, and a book club to provide pre-publication feedback to publishers. Coronado is a beautiful resort city, as I said, with a beach that has been regularly named the #1 beach in America, and it's right across the bridge. It's home to cultural arts institutions like the Coronado Library, Lamb's Theater, and Coronado Playhouse. So Sean, again, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Oh, great, thank you. Looking forward to the talk today.
You know, we're going to have you talk a little bit about the Coronado Library, and we have a video that we're going to play, give people a virtual tour since we're not in the actual space this time. But I just wanted to ask you, like, is there anything up and coming at the library that people need to know about, or, you know, just in general programs that people forget about the incredible resource that our libraries are?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, libraries are doing the same thing as retail these days. You know, we're trying to provide the user an experience as well as the product when they come in. And you know, we're trying to be a community hub and the cement that holds the community together mostly through our programs and events. So we're slamming out events all the time. Just a couple of days ago, we had a live in-person Philharmonia orchestra that was completely sold out.
Wow.
And next week, coming up in a couple of days, on Wednesday, actually, in partnership with Warwick's Bookstore, we are doing an author talk for a new book. It's of a decorated Navy SEAL, Brandon Webb, who has co-authored a book with New York Times bestselling author John David Mann, and the book's called Steel Fear. And it's set on an aircraft carrier, which is, for Coronado, we've got an aircraft carrier base on Coronado, so it's very topical and local. That's going to be at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Throughout the summer, we've got a lecture series on the environment. And everybody knows the San Diego Zoo, world famous San Diego Zoo. They have put together a series of books, children's books, about animals that are actually in the zoo. And so the Coronado Library is working exclusively with the San Diego Zoo to produce and broadcast story times of these book series that are produced by the zoo for kids. And I think the next one it's going to be on August the 12th, Ty the Quiet Giraffe. So we've got lots going on.
I know that a lot of those events with the zoo, they actually bring some of the animals. I don't imagine we're going to have a giraffe at the library, though. No.
Actually, it's the other way around. It kind of started in the pandemic. When they were closed, we partnered with a lot of the museums in Balboa Park and actually went into the museums when they were closed to the public and then shot story times and events from inside.
Very cool.
Place. We went to the zoo. They don't come to us. It'd be interesting if they would, though.
Well, I know sometimes they bring cheetahs, and you know they have a German Shepherd. I think I'm not sure the breed of the dog.
Might have to change the rules. Right now, it's seeing eye dogs only. I think.
Seeing eye dogs only. Well, I think we could change the rules for a cheetah. You are a mover and a shaker. I'm so touched by all of the wonderful programming that you bring, and I know you have a vision for community, and it really shows. So people, go to the Coronado Library and support your library wherever you are. There's a director there who's putting all that stuff together for you, someone like Sean. And, you know, so thank you for all of your work. Let's pull up the video if we can, Haley, and let's take a tour of the Coronado Public Library.
Hi, I'm Sean Briley. I'm the director of the Coronado Public Library. Today's library is less and less about coming in to get a piece of information, more and more about the venue and the intellectual recreation that people are coming here for and the cultural experiences they want to share with other members of the community. So for instance, if you look at our circulation, it's now 2/3 fiction, 1/3 non-fiction. That really reflects the way libraries have evolved and what people are coming here for. So this library has a fine art collection already. And behind me, we have a Ramos Martinez mural that was brought here from a restaurant. We have a number of other Martinez pieces, and we have an original Donald Horn sculpture, many other pieces of fine art in the library. We hope to grow that collection and continue to have an increasingly important role providing artistic and cultural stimulation and entertainment for the community in Coronado. So I was born and raised in the United Kingdom. I've been here in the States since 2004. I worked for quite a while in the San Diego system, so we couldn't do anything that we do here in the library on our own, and we really depend on partnerships. And probably our primary partner for the arts is the Coronado Cultural Arts Commission, who have been, fantastic support and key pillar of everything that we do here in that area. I'm really pleased to be here in Coronado. It's a fantastic community. We've got some fantastic programming for you, and we really hope to see you in here.
Awesome. I want to tell everyone, the Coronado Public Library and with support from the Hotel Del are the sponsors for this next event. So Sean, will you do this the honors and just tell us a little bit about the Hotel Del?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Del is this beautiful historic beachfront hotel in Coronado. It was built in the Victorian era. It was finished in the 1880s, and it's been visited by presidents and royalty and movie stars. It's a National Historic Landmark. A lot of people know it for the movie Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon. But there have been several movies that were shot there. That was shot on location there. And, it's something that we've had a relationship with at the library for a very long time. Before Coronado was even formed as a town, the Del was built and the Coronado Beach Library was next door to the Del. And we only moved to our current location in the 30s. And it's just part of the, literary and cultural history of Coronado, which, we had L. Frank Baum, the author of The Wizard of Oz, lived and wrote there. We have the Coronado Island Film Festival there. We are really looking forward to having the San Diego Writers Festival there next year. Hopefully we can get back to in person. So, a rich cultural and literary history where we are, and the Del's right at the smack center of town.
It's so beautiful. We're so fortunate to have such a beautiful landmark. I know we have a 1-minute video and we're running a little bit behind, but can we go ahead and cue that up, Carolyn? The 1-minute video with sound of the Hotel Del. Sign me up. I'm gonna go stay there. We all need it after this weekend. That was awesome. All right, welcome back, everyone. How lucky are we? This next conversation is going to be incredible. One of our favorite journalists and a great friend to the festival, not to mention the fact that he is a highly acclaimed author, Dean Nelson is joining us in conversation with the world's #1 best-selling author, James Patterson, and First Sergeant U.S. Army retired Matt Eversmann, who was part of the Ranger unit portrayed in the movie Black Hawk Down, here to talk about their new book, Walk in My Combat Boots, True Stories from America's Bravest Warriors. And remember, you can enter to win a copy right now with the link in the comments section. So I want to turn it, I don't know if we have everyone on screen right now. I actually can't tell. Do we have our people yet? All right, well, we'll move on. We do. All right, awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Sean, because you're going to introduce James Patterson.
Okay,
but right.
Yep. We're all set. Well, James Patterson, as everybody knows, I think is the world's best-selling author and most trusted storyteller. He's created many enduring fictional characters and series, including Alex Cross, The Women's Murder Club, Michael Bennett, and Maximum Ride. Among his notable collaborations are The President is Missing with President Bill Clinton, and the Max Einstein series produced in partnership with the Albert Einstein Estate. Patterson's writing career is characterized by a single mission: to prove that there's no such thing as a person who doesn't like to read. Only people who haven't found the right book. So he's actually given over 3 million books to school kids and the military, donated over 5,000 college scholarships for teachers. The National Book Foundation recently presented Patterson with the Literarian Award for Outstanding Service to the American literary community. And he's also the recipient of an Edgar Award and 6 Emmy Awards, so amazing. He lives in Florida with his family. Back to you, Jennifer.
Awesome. Wait, 9. We're hearing 9. Thank you, Sean. 9. That was wonderful.
Oh,
Marnie.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, this is quite an honor. We are going to learn about the creation of this powerful collection of brutally honest stories. Marnie, did you want to say a couple words?
Well, I'm very excited to be giving them an award. Is it time for the awards?
Yes. Well, actually, is it time? I think we should read Matt Eversmann's bio, and I will be happy to do that real quick if y'all don't mind.
Absolutely. Fascinating guy.
Well, I mean, how lucky are we to have such an amazing,
These
both
two
of you
men,
are,
yeah.
and Dean, I mean, it's just amazing. So First Sergeant retired Matt Eversmann personifies the importance of duty, courage, and selfless service to succeed when ordinary circumstances become extraordinary challenges. His inspiring story of survival was immortalized in the epic film Black Hawk Down, which recounts the harrowing experience of leading a group of Army Rangers in a daytime raid against an eager enemy militia. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Valor Device. He retired in May 2008 after 20 years of service. He is now a published author and documentarian. His film, Send Me, aired on PBS in October 2018. He and his wife, Tori, founded Eversmann Advisory in 2018, where they connect great veterans with exceptional employers through training and mentorship, which is awesome. He and Tori live in West Palm Beach, Florida, with their daughter and 2 black labs. Matt is a big fan of the green egg. You're a barbecuer, I see. He also loves travel, and he's an aspiring surfer. So you're gonna have to come to San Diego and get on your board here, because we've got some pretty good waves.
Yes, welcome
both of
Mr.
you.
Eversmann. So before we begin the main event, and we have our amazing friend to the Writers Festival, Dean Nelson, who's going to be interviewing them, we'd love to bring them on screen and give them our 2021 Community Leadership Awards to James Patterson and Matt Eversmann. Their book is a game changer in our community. So many people in our community serve, and the people that don't understand is what I've heard. And this book bridges that gap. It's beautifully done. It takes you to many different voices that you wouldn't expect. It's both entertaining and revealing all at the same time. There are lots of individual stories. So because of that, and just the amazing response that we got, we wanted to give them the Leadership Award in hopes that it inspires more people to tell their story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what an honor this is. Gentlemen, do you mind holding up your awards so we can get a photo and everyone smile? Awesome. Hi, Dean. It's good to see you.
Good to see everybody. It's an honor to be with you all.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right,
So
here we go. Everyone smile.
Oh, we're posing.
We're going to do a photo, yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I know it seems awkward to smile for a photo on Zoom,
really does.
but we got it. We got to do it. We got to do it. We work our way through it.
So I get the pleasure of introducing Dean Nelson. Such a support to us, even just a few days ago, sending me a lovely note when he knows right before the flurry of a festival, you're kind of nervous and running on adrenaline, and he sent a lovely note. Dean Nelson is an award-winning journalist, the founder and director of the journalism program at Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego, and host of the annual Writers Symposium by the Sea. I never miss one. If you haven't seen one, go there. He does amazing interviews at this Writers Symposium by the Sea. He writes for the New York Times, the Boston Globe, San Diego Magazine, and several other national publications. He has written or co-written 14 books. Dean has traveled throughout the world covering stories of human interest, including the members of the Black Panther Party living in exile in Tanzania, and stories of religious persecution occurring in Tibet. He's won several awards from the Society of Professional Journalists for his reporting, and is a frequent speaker at writing workshops and retreats, including ours. Dean has also, as I said, been an ardent supporter of the San Diego Writers Festival since its inception. Before any of us believed in it, he believed in it, and we're so grateful to have him here today. And with that, I will turn it over to Dean.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marnie, and thank you, Jennifer. You put together an amazing program. I know what it takes to do this, and I'm always impressed by you. And James Patterson and Matt Eversmann, oh my gosh, what an honor to talk with you. I was just in awe of this magnificent book. Here we go. I was in awe of it, and I'm not a steady reader of military genre kinds of things, but I was so by this one. One of the things I would love to get into right away with you is how you decided on the structure. As a writer, I'm big on structure, and I know, James, you're used to writing a narrative that follows, a character, and you care about it, and you've got suspense until the end. But this is a completely different kind of book, which I think is its strength. So I'm wondering, how did that conversation go about how to structure it?
I think the breakthrough for Matt and I was Matt is a fabulous interviewer, and that was important here because one of the problems and one of the reasons a lot of people don't totally understand the military is that these men and women come back and they don't want to talk about it. A lot of them don't. And Matt is great at getting them to talk about, because he puts them at ease, and obviously he's been there. And our mission was, like when my dad came back from World War II, he never talked about it, ever, would not say a word. And so we went from the interviews, which could be 40 or 50 pages, and once a week, Matt would drop that on my porch, 300 pages of interviews or whatever the heck it is. And then taking them down and making them these 5 or 6 or 7 page for each military person in the book. And as Matt said, there's 40 some, it's the equivalent of 40 some nonfiction books, because everyone tells you enough that you feel that person and you get 1 or 2 of their amazing stories.
And there's no, what I felt like there was no, oh yeah, this story is a lot like that other story that I read 12 people ago. It isn't like that at all. So Matt, clearly you were operating from abundance. I assume you interviewed more than 45 people for this?
Yeah, Dean, we had a pretty fair, I think we were over 100 change when it was done. And to that point, I must just say, if you're one of the 49 that didn't make it or 60 that didn't make it, their stories were phenomenal too. But, I spent 20 years on active duty. And so I kept telling Jim, I thought I knew a little bit about combat. I think I knew a little bit about the Army, but I would listen to each of these stories and just literally, the hyperbole blows your mind, but it really was that amazing. And thankfully it was, I didn't have to make the decision on who made it or not. The boss figures that out, but 100, there could have been 200 stories, and they all would have been
He's blaming
incredible.
that on me.
Yeah. You're the boss, James. So
yeah, I'm not the boss of Sergeant Eversmann. Trust me.
So
in the other room.
So Matt, you would do an interview that I would assume go for hours, and you would transcribe this. Let me see if I've got this right, because it sounds like a lot of work. You would transcribe that interview and then give that transcription to James or Jim. Do you want me to call you Jim? Sorry.
Whatever you feel like. You can go back and forth. It's all good.
Okay. We'll go with boss man. So, Matt, you would drop this transcript off at James Patterson's place, and Jim, you would then take hundreds of pages and boil it down to 6 or 7.
Yeah, pretty much. I tell you, our mission, and this is important in terms of where this thing started, in terms of introducing us, where so many people don't understand the military. And this is one of these rare books where at the end of it, you go, I thought I understood, I didn't understand. And in reading this book, I get it for the first time in my life. But our mission was, if you've been there, you would say that Sergeant Eversmann and Patterson got it right and gave us a voice. And if you're one of these people who hasn't been there and has never been shot at and never shot at another human being, you'd go, for the first time in my life, I understand and I have respect. But more than anything else, understanding of the military. There was a thing in the New York Times, it's going to come out tomorrow, on their magazine section. And it's this thing about, it's sort of like supposed to be negative about the right wing. And it has to do with, like people, like the military and cops. And like, what is wrong? What is wrong per se with the military? And what is wrong per se with police? And that's part of so whoever put that on the cover, I'd like them to read the damn book. And I'm kind of a lefty, but you get it. It's like, no, this is complicated stuff. And there's a lot of wonderful people doing wonderful things in the military.
I hear you. And the first part of what you were just saying there, Jim, I thought was such a tricky needle to thread, which is, Matt, you've got all these military folks who are going to read this, and they're going to be a critical audience. I'm thinking of readers in San Diego. This is a military town, and they're going to read this, and they've got a pretty good crap detector, and they're going to know whether you are on the level or not. And then you've got other people who don't have any military experience who are going to read this, and you've got to communicate to them too. That's a tricky high wire act you're on right there.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of military books are hard to read, because they use too much language that a lot of people won't understand. And we tried not to do that.
So Jim, in your case, in transcribing this, the fact that you aren't a military guy, you were able to read it and put in just enough information, because all military,
we want to make it stories. We want people to read it. Exactly. And it's, like Studs Terkel, remember back in the Chicago Journalist, and that stuff, I found it hard to get through the 700-page books, even though they're pretty good stories. And you don't know until you do it. You always hope books are going to turn out well. This one really turned out great. In fact, we just finished another one on emergency room nurses, which is coming out in October, and it's even more of a mind blower.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a new genre, actually, because when I was preparing for this, I saw that you're doing this with ER nurses. Yeah, I assume COVID related.
No. We tried not to make it a COVID book. In fact, with the interviews, Matt and I talked, and we wouldn't let them talk about COVID till the end of the interview, because we wanted to get their story, not just COVID. The thing about emergency room nurses is, they were prepared better than anybody in the country to deal with COVID, because they deal with emergencies every day, all day. It's an interesting, phenomena. We're doing cops now. Now.
Yeah. Outstanding.
Another mind blower.
I can't wait. I really can't. So Matt, let me ask you on this, on how this book came about and how it's being received. One of the senses I got was, on the one hand, it it creates a tremendous sense of pride that a lot of these people write about being members of the military and being Americans. But there was also a sense of regret and a few kind of ashamed of what they had done. Were you afraid that that maybe this was going to explode a little bit of the myths about what it means to serve in the military?
You know, I'm going to kind of waffle on the answer, Dean, a little bit, because I was most concerned from my contribution here to the project was just, you know, they're the worst critics. I mean, they'll hang you from the yardarm if you're not, you know, straight up. So, you know, you're really getting it right. You got to make sure you get it right. As I was talking through, you know, these kids, and we tried to be as equitable amongst the branches, amongst the MOSs within the branch, you know, we tried to keep, you know, to cover everybody. And you know, I was hearing these stories from these young men and women, like, what, Matt, why are you talking to me? You know, well, I don't know why you want to hear my story. I was just a driver, or I was just an engineer, or it all started with that I was just.
Yeah, I was just
precisely the point.
Yeah, I was just a dentist. We got a dentist in over there. He wound up being a dentist for Saddam Hussein. You know, I mean, so we want to hear your story, pal.
Yeah, no kidding. That was one of my favorite ones, actually, was the dentist of Saddam. But I think that I was just is actually the point of this book. You know, absolutely. I was just a truck mechanic. I was just you know, whatever. And you kind of honored all of those different positions that people have, but you also made them really integral into the whole military effort.
Well, if I could just, Jim, jump on that one for a sec. And it's because they are, you know, Dean, and I don't mean that to sound, you know, self-righteous about it, but, you know, we have far more, you know, cooks and mechanics and lower enlisted guys that have carried all the water, you know, and I think, you know, we kind of fell in as a culture, the military culture almost, that this was all the special operations world. This was SEALs and Rangers and Delta guys. And, you know, that kind of got all, that always gets all, and being a former one, you know, I can say with a little bit of confidence, they're one part of it, but these young men and women, you know, they did so much heavy lifting. And I think we told a good story. You know, we let them tell a good story across that continuum.
Yeah, and it's never political. We don't. You can read
it is not political at all.
It's not right, left, or sideways. It's just the truth as we could find out. One of the interesting things, and the response has been unbelievable, ranging from, you know, Admiral McRaven, who gave us a wonderful quote, to General McChrystal, to Bill Clinton. It's you know, it's just all across the line. But one of the fascinating things, you know, in terms of hitting me right in the heart, my best friend in high school got drafted and went to Vietnam. And we meet a couple of times a year, but he called me up after he read this thing and he said, you know, I've always liked your books, but this one, I just loved it so much. And what he was doing was he had reconnected with men and women he had served with in Vietnam, and they all were reading the book. And then it got them telling stories and rehashing things and reliving it. And he just, I mean, and we've heard that again and again and again. Yeah. People who have been in, who share the book, and then if they start resharing experiences that they had, which is, you know, I think very, very special.
Well, yeah, it's a great gift. It seems like that you gave to all members of the military by doing a book like this, not telling again, I love your other books where you've got these long narratives and you get attached to the characters. But
one of the weird things about this, and this is really messed up, Fox and that side really covered this thing like crazy, and CNN, no, which that's stupid. That's insane. That's insane. New York Times, nothing. I mean, and I read the New York Times every day, and I watch CNN, but I mean, it's like crazy. People, this whole political thing is so out of hand and so ridiculous, where people don't want to understand. You need to understand.
Yeah,
it's like wow.
And that's unbelievable. that's one of the gifts I think your book does, is it helps you understand something. So Jim, the writer in you, you're taking all of these interviews and boiling them down to their essence. I personally felt like there were some recurring themes in there, but I'm wondering if you could talk about what you saw.
I'll let Matt do that, but I can do it. But let Matt do that.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah,
they're all absolutely. You're absolutely right. Of course,
they are, and again, because they're all legitimate and they're straight from each one of these kids' heart. And when I say kids, I mean that with affection. Like the first recurrent theme, I think that naturally jumps out is this thing about selfless service. And wherever they came from in America, whatever their quick background, that glimpse into what you get in these stories are ideas of service and this need to give back. And then the second thing is that identity that comes with being, a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, and how they're the true esprit de corps and the camaraderie that these young men and women feel, regardless of their rank, regardless of position, but just being in that crucible together. I mean, those two pack a powerful punch, I think. And you see it in pretty much every single one of those stories.
And part of the reason we have the range in terms of putting the book together ultimately, and we did put it into sections, but the interviews always started with, why did you get in? What happened? What brought you into it? It could be family, could be, tired of high school, not wanting to do it, whatever,
9/11 was the motivator.
Yeah, 9/11 was a big factor. Then basic, what happened in basic, then stories about what happened to you in there, and then what happened afterward.
Right.
Some of them are still in the military, but what's happened since you went in.
But Jim, didn't you also see that there was a mental health aspect?
Sure.
So many. There's
a mental health aspect to everything. Yeah, no, but absolutely. And one of the big things, and that's what Matt's group now deals with, is people who come out. And we're not doing a very good job helping those people and understanding those people and getting and make it easier for them to come back. And some have trouble getting back in again because, there's so many levels where, you go in and you have a mission, and the mission is very clear when you're in the military. Well, it's relatively clear. You have a mission, and then you come out and it's like, ooh, now what's my mission? And a lot of us, like kids go to school and suddenly they're out in the workforce. They had a mission since they were in kindergarten, which was school. And all of a sudden it's like, ooh, what's my mission? Or, somebody retires. Oh, I've been working for 40 years. What's my mission? So most of us go through that, but it's very intense because some of these people, they're coming out and they're 25, 26, 27 years old. And they've had this, mission in life. And all of a sudden, okay, now what? Now where do I go? Athletes, you're 35 years old. You're in the major leagues. Whoa, I'm not a star anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that was part of the recurring theme in my view as I was reading through these, that the return home was actually the hardest part for so many of these folks, men and women. I think one of the quotes is, in the military, you have your tribe, everything you need, and then you don't. The military is your family, not your real family, but this is your family. But here's the line that I underlined that from the book that I found so actually disturbing, that said, it's more dangerous here than it is in Iraq. One of the veterans.
More dangerous, you mean back in the States?
Back in the United States. It's more dangerous here for that person than in Iraq. That gave me an insight into military service that I didn't have before. And Matt, I assume that was an intentional decision on your part.
Well, again, I defer to the master, but to lead up on this, I would just say, again, we're talking a couple of things. It's all true. And we're talking in a lot of these cases, universally, Dean. You could have a young guy or gal from San Diego that has spent more time in Baghdad, graduated from high school, enlisted, spent more time in Baghdad and Kandahar than he or she did in San Diego. And then, come back when you're 23 and realize this is nothing. This is nothing like what I've been living in. And it really, it's tragic in a sense. It's frustrating to me in a sense. And I also don't understand, because there are plenty of people that will come back and assimilate and do just fine. Like, never miss a beat. But we've asked a lot, and regardless of anyone's politics too, we've asked a lot. And that, I think that was from Nick Black's chapter. And a guy comes home and after making it through horrific fighting in like the Korangal Valley, and commits suicide after he gets home. You're like, how on earth does that happen? Which I don't mean to take us all the way down that road, but I guess that my closing comment is, they're all real though. They're not all happy. They're not all sad. They're not all funny. They're not all glad, but they're all very, very, very unbelievably true.
One of the things that Matt is dealing with this now in terms of what he's doing for vets is the notion that when you're in the military, on some extent, because it's a life and death thing, you're given 100%. And what a lot of people, who have to employ aren't understanding is, you want people that are going to come back and give 100%. You want that in your companies. You want people that. Right. What are they trained to do? They're trained to give 100%. Mm-hmm. And sometimes some of the frustration that some of these people have is they come back and all of a sudden somebody's saying, we only want 50%. Or the people around you are going like, why are you, come on, relax. You're making us look bad. You work too hard. You're doing too good a job, which is crazy too. But if companies could harness that rather than be afraid of it, it would be valuable to a lot. I'm sure in San Diego they do a better job than most places.
Well, I hope so, but you'd have to ask ask those involved. On the one hand, Jim, you say that it's not a political book, but on the other hand, it's hard to get a good feeling about war when you read this book.
Why would you have nobody in the military says let's go out there and get shot. Nobody, the generals, nobody wants to have people go out there and get shot at. So there's nothing good to say about war. I don't think, Matt, that's your,
Well, I think, we've gotten a little bit of, 20 years of it. There's almost this pop culture, like, lens in one sense into it. And I say that with respect to my SEAL brothers, out on the coast, but everybody, you see the look, you see the persona, and that's, oh my gosh, it's all over social media. And I want to be that kid with a baseball hat and a sleeve tattoo and a Glock, and that's like that kind of thing. And you're like, it ain't like that. And as you see and hear, Dean and Jim definitely just dropped the hammer on with, very rightfully so. No, see, you're 18 or 28 or 38 and see your best friend vaporized literally in front of you because of an IED. Like, it's hard to find anything glamorous or sexy or neat or cool about that. So again, I keep coming back, when you read these stories, they're so, and some of them are very, very just heart-wrenching, dramatic, but it's true. Like, it's really
it's also part of this misconception that people have that that the military is a bunch of kids that they play video games and then want to go over and shoot people. Even if it starts that way a little bit for them, by the time they get through basic and by the time they write their death letter, it's like, I do not want to die. I think I'm going to die and I don't want to die. And I have this I'm building this allegiance to the men and women to the left and right of me. And that's more what the military is than, I'm going to go over there and, people don't want to get shot at. Most people.
Dean, if I could just one more quick thought before my monkey brain shuts down. Don't confuse that either with the lack of zeal or drive or, that idea that we have a professional force of these men and women that they're ready to go. Yeah, they might not like it. They might put on a break, but don't be. I just thought of that. I hope I didn't paint the wrong picture. I mean, there are still people that are ready to go at a moment's notice because that's what they do.
And there should be. There should be. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, I'm
no,
not trying
Matt,
to suggest that that's right.
No, I didn't get that impression at all. It's just more a matter of that the myth that we oftentimes associate with war and with deployments and things like that. This is a book that in part shatters those myths and says this is what it's like, and it's not like those video games. It's not like the movies, and it's hard. But at no point, Matt, did I get the sense of, and so we don't want to be ready for the next one. No,
good. I hope I was. Sometimes I'm a knucklehead. Well, most of the time, but
no, but here
I concur.
That's between you two. But here's one of the other things though, is there were more than one of these accounts that felt like what they were told, what some of these young people were told when they went in, was not really very true, and they kind of felt a little misled. It didn't change their commitment and their zeal to serve and protect one another. But I did get a little bit of a sense that they felt like they were not completely, their recruiters were not completely forthcoming, and which I thought was a bold move again on the part of this book.
Well, I would think that you could go, right down the street to, over to Coronado, and I suspect just about, 100 out of 100. Sailors would chime in with a good "my recruiter lied to me" story, which I think everybody does have, and I don't mean to make light of it, but it is, and some of them got sold that's a whole discussion that we should start drinking over, that one. But
and Dean, it's not in our control, okay, and that's why with this is their book.
Exactly.
This is their book. This is they're telling their stories, and it's not our job to tell their stories for them. One of the things that I find in unfortunately in some journalism is people come to interview you, they already know what they want. They know what their spin is. Mm-hmm. And they're going to they're going to put it in. We're not interested in the spin. We have no spin.
Yeah.
It's their stories. Good, bad, whatever. And that's, to me, one of the wonderful things about the book is it's true. It's somebody's truth.
Yeah. And that's one of the strengths of this book, in my view, because there is no overarching analysis that the two of you provide for this. There's nothing that says, so dear reader, here's what it all means. It's snapshot, snapshot, snapshot. And it's up to me to determine how I want to read it. And I think that's one of the great.
No, I mean, I think that's what's amazing about. And once again, I'm saluting these people, not Matt and I. That in a way, it's like you're going out and you're talking in 5 or 6 hours to 45 or so people who have been there, and it's like, wow, that was. I mean, imagine doing that in a couple of days or in a day. You're like, oh boy, that was intense. That was wonderful. I learned something. It was fascinating. One of the most amazing days of my life. If you turned it into just meeting those people, and I think in the book you meet them.
Yeah. And what your book does is it really underscores, I think, something that the two of you already believed anyway, which is everybody has a story to tell, and regardless of the position that they held. We talked about this before, but not just their position. Everybody's got a story. They're coming from somewhere, and their story is interesting. And the writers, you, Matt and Jim, you're the ones who made it interesting. We all know people who will tell you a story of their lives, and you're just pulling your eyeballs out because it's so boring. You were able to pull all this together and say, pay attention to this. This is important. It's interesting. I really applaud how you did it. What about the Do you think that a book like this could be even used as a preventive kind of book for people who really want to rush to conflict? If they were to read this and say, oh, this is actually the human cost to this, maybe we ought to slow this rhetoric down. Do you think it could serve that kind of a purpose too?
I'm not quite sure what go ahead, Matt, if you followed that. I was a little.
Yeah, no, I was going to jump in. I mean, I think in one sense, it certainly every leader, military and political, for starters, should read this, because you got to know what we're asking. So yeah, from that perspective, without a doubt, you got to know. And listen, we're getting ready to enter. I mean, here we are. Fast forward the rest of this year and future, we could now have new politicians leading soldiers that weren't even born at 9/11, that never deployed. So all of a sudden, from a historical perspective, and I don't want to get too deep, but yeah, you got to know what the effects of this is. So it certainly should be read for any leader that has anything to do with the military, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And writers who are writing about, I mean, it's really useful for writers to read this kind of thing. And the same will be true of the nurse's book and the cop's book. You're writing detective fiction, man. Read the cops thing. It'll change the way you write, because you'll know stuff you didn't know before.
Yeah, I just found it so raw and vulnerable. I felt like as I mentioned, the person who ended up being Saddam Hussein's dentist. On the one hand,
it's an amazing,
it was an amazing story, and it was hilarious in a brutal kind of way, very revealing. There a lot of stuff in there that I didn't know, but also there was a story about an interrogator, and I can't remember if he was at Guantanamo or elsewhere, where they had a high level person that he was trying to extract some information out of. I found that to be a really compelling story as well.
Yeah,
you know what we're talking about?
In Baghdad, that was Red. What's his name? And amazing,
Oh my gosh.
Just a young guy from nowhere, USA.
Tell the door gunner story, Matt.
Yeah, and this is right out in your neck of the woods, Dean. We had a young female Marine named Lisa Bodenberg.
I remember this story.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is one that both Jim and I really enjoyed together. Like, it could be our top one, because this young female post 9/11, is compelled to join, and what's the hardest job you can do. And at the time, the only thing open to women in the Marine Corps that would put her in harm's way was to be a crew chief on a Huey. And so, her story that takes her through, 5, 6, 7 different courses where she has to be the #1 graduate in her class just to get the opportunity to go to war. And I mean, I can't do it justice in 30 seconds, but like, what an amazing story of just this from Buffalo, this young girl that just decides, 9/11 meant something to her. And that's what you get in this book. It's amazing. Her story is amazing.
That's one that Hollywood is looking at a little bit, but they should look at it a lot, because her story is stunning. Just an amazing, amazing story. And there are so many of them. There was one about a woman, and there were several military people, and they were going to die, but they wanted to have them die with their families. So she had to fly back from Germany including a couple of the wives who were on the flight as well. And that's, if you think about it, that's 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever the hell it is. I don't, it's just, that's an extraordinary scene, an extraordinary experience, very moving.
It was so sobering to read that.
Yeah. The stories, the twins, the Dratis, Matt, you can, and they're great. They're very, and that's interesting too, because those guys came back and they've done really well, back in the States. But go ahead, Matt, on them.
Yeah, no, there's, identical twin brothers that look like Zeus and Apollo. I mean, they could lift 500 pounds apiece, and never separated, like have never been separated. And they just take the plunge. They enlist for 6 years to be Rangers, go to the same unit. They put them in different companies, and they were so close, you know, that they could feel each other's, you know, fears and
right
feelings. So like when they would want, Kevin would go out on a mission, Jason would be in the operations center watching the drone feed so he could see his brother and vice versa. I mean, it's almost spooky. And they're like they're the nicest young guys, and they just felt the need to serve and do something really hard. And they're two brothers from South Florida that said, I'll do it. Send me.
Yeah, I mean, stories are, and that's, I mean, I'm always driven by stories. You know, people have to give speeches, and I actually, when in business had to give speech, I was terrible at it until I learned just tell stories. Just tell stories. Don't sit there and throw prose at people and blah, 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 blah. Tell them stories. Tell them stories to make your points. And that's what we do in the book. We just tell story after story after story. And that's why I think it's you really read it because they're amazing stories.
Well, and that's the strength again of it. If I were to ask someone, what's it like to be in Iraq, or what's it like to be in Afghanistan? They might just kind of go all over the place. But now I just had a real sense of that you could be there just by hearing this individual's story, not the big analysis of should we be there? You know, what else? What are the forces behind it? But this is what it's like to be.
Now, I mentioned, I mean, things like, and you've read it in various novels and whatever about, you know, getting shot at or shooting at somebody. It comes alive here several times where you just get that, you really understand what it's like to that first time you're shot at, or the first time you have to shoot at somebody, a real human being, not target practice, the real deal.
And something I had not read in this kind of a context before was one person's account of, okay, this is what it's like to die. And he just describes how peaceful and all of that. That just floored me when I read that. And then obviously he doesn't, because he's telling you his story, but it just it put me there.
Yeah. There are several pieces like that.
Yeah, there really are. So we've got a question from the audience. Let me just, was there one in particular that you heard and thought, well, this one just goes too far, we can't put this one in? Did you have any of those?
Yeah. We did, only because there were a couple. Matt, you can go ahead.
I mean, there are just some ones, you know, sometimes when young men and women of all ages get excited, they start just talking very much unfiltered. And you know, there were some folks that got on active duty that had some pretty frank comments about the command, which, having been a soldier, I'm like, well, we're going to do you a favor. And just, you know, we're just putting that in there. Right? Trust me on this when I say it. We're going to help you out. You'll thank us later.
Although you left in plenty, Matt, that did challenge the intelligence.
You know, some of these generals need to be challenged. You know, they need to take a little bit of a look at the command. But like some of these really were. I mean, I don't want to be coy, but there was just some were like, you know what, we're really just gonna.
That's right. We're not gonna be responsible for you getting
going to the brig,
losing your job. Yeah, right.
So it was the nature. That was the nature of the things you took out primarily.
There were one or two where we just brutal. Went, this could get somebody in a little trouble, and we're not going to put it in.
Yeah. I think when you're doing this kind of writing, there is that sense where you have to go through that says, I'm going to save you from yourself right now, and we're not going to include that.
Yeah, we're not out to get somebody hurt, especially, you know. Yeah, no.
So what about the men and women? Did you notice any difference? One person is asking, anything stand out that that was significant about the women's stories that was different from the men's?
I think the biggest thing is how little stood out. I mean, and Matt can go through this,
Oh,
but
interesting.
how close I mean, obviously, I mean, especially when Matt went in, and it's changed a lot over the years. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, Jim's exactly right. I was just kind of thinking, like, gosh, what would I answer? And the fact is, there really wasn't much difference. I mean, you talk to female truck drivers that covered more battle space than, you know, an infantry guy in a year. You know, dodging IEDs to deliver the mail for 10 months straight, blowing up a bunch of times. You're like, you don't even think about their gender. And I'm saying this with as candid as I could be. You talk about Lisa Bodenberg, you talk about Jenna Stewart, you know, all of these young women, you know, just as driven to serve. A lot of them, as we said, post 9/11, and a lot of them were just like, give me something hard to do, because I want to. And I don't, you know, maybe they had agendas. I don't know, but I certainly listen. I got to hear them. I got to read them. I got to reread them. I got to talk to Jim about them. I feel like I know every single one of these people like their parents. And they were just people that women that wanted to go and serve. And I get it.
And pretty good acceptance from the males too about women in combat or whatever. Pretty good. Yeah. Better than you would expect.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that. The only thing I noticed about the women's stories is it seemed like they had more to overcome to actually get in and pass and get the acceptance from their superiors. I did get that sense. What about, were there people who were afraid to be completely honest with you because they were afraid they were going to get discharged? Or I mean, do you own your own?
Here's an interesting thing now, since we're doing the 3 books. I think that in the military book, people were pretty open, and it was pretty easy to get people to talk. The nurses, very open. Cops has been the hardest.
Interesting.
Because they're all, and there's a lot of cops running around going like, you know, I've tried to do a good job. I don't approve. I absolutely disapprove, you know, of what happened in Minneapolis. I think it's a disgrace. And yet people are sitting here giving me looks like, you know, that's the way I've operated in my life, you know. But that's an interesting one. And also more of I got to talk to people above me to make sure that I can be in this book. Not so much with the military and the nurses.
That's interesting. I would have thought the police and the military would have been similar in that whole chain of command thing.
I really would have too, Dean. I was shocked at how many kids that were on active duty were like, yeah, I'll sign this release form and talk to you. I'm like, okay. I mean, you know,
fortunately, we were looking out for them.
Yeah, exactly. You knew what they were getting into. Matt, this is a different kind of book from what you experienced in Black Hawk Down, and saw Mark Bowden's take on it. So what are you learning about writing in all of this, Matt? We all know that Jim knows everything.
It's hard, right, man? It's really hard.
No, Jim knows it all, but Matt, what are you learning?
Everything. I mean, it is. I mean, listen, I got to be candid. I mean, you get an opportunity to not just take a master class, but participate in a master class. You know, I mean, geez, even a chucklehead can figure something out. I think what I'm learning is, first of all, how difficult it really is. And, you know, the case in point, and we've talked right through it for, you know, throughout this interview, you know, you take a 60, 70, 80 page manuscript, you cut it down to 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, and there you got a story, and you can see the wheels turning when I tell people that story. They're like, oh, well, I could do that. I'm like, I could do that. I'm like, well, mathematically, you could throw away 57 pages and you'd be left. But to bring it in, you know, however many in 40 paragraphs that are 5 sentences to do that and grab you and hold you and be like, I can't believe the chapter's over all of a sudden. And I feel like I know this person. I certainly don't have that talent.
And this thing has helped me a lot too, just in terms of really digging deeper, researching deeper, really going for authenticity. And sometimes, thriller writers get a little sloppy. And also the book I did with President Clinton, because what separates like The President's Daughter, which is out now, from a lot of suspense books is his insistence and then my insistence that if something in there happened, this is the way it would happen. So this is what the Secret Service would do. This is what they wouldn't do. This is what is possible under these circumstances. This is what a president could do. And that's, it makes it different.
Right. But the point that Matt is making here, Jim, is that you were able to go at this enormous amount of information and say what's absolutely necessary here.
Yeah.
It's like you were the X-ray machine. Where are just the bones of this thing?
Yeah. Well, that's my deal. That's what I do. It's getting at the core in anything that I do. When I write a scene, I'm starting with what's the core of this scene. And, a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's wonderful where it's a very tense scene and they go on for 2 pages about the birds chirping and whatever. And I go like, yeah, kind of maybe, but not really. Sometimes it's fine and the writing is wonderful and it's okay because they're not. But if you're really trying to create the scene, or somebody will have done research and they dump like 8 pages of research in the middle of a scene, you're going like, really? Dude, I mean, this isn't where this belongs, unless it's, a certain kind of a book.
But conversely, do you read some of the transcript and go back to Matt and say, hey, I need more on something about?
No, not never that. But sometimes we would talk about, as we continue with interviews, consider, we're doing it now with cops. So just a little bit of rounding that we need in terms of that story, the big story. Here's what we're missing.
Okay.
So more that way, as opposed to that, like we needed more on that individual.
Sure. But and Matt, I'm assuming that interviewing for you is a lot like writing, which is the more you do it, the better you get at it. Did you find yourself improving from person to person?
He's great at it. He's great at it. He's great at it.
Thanks, Jim.
That's where this thing started. I watched Matt do some interviews because he did a documentary. He and a friend of mine did a documentary. And I said, damn, this guy, he has that ability to put people at ease. It's an interesting thing, when we're going to do the emergency room nurses thing, the publishers go, well, we should get a nurse in here to do the interviews. I said, no, nobody will be able to do it as well as Matt will. And the first couple, we went like, let's because they're not, you got to push them a little bit. And we got to get them going. Once they get going, it's nothing but the truth. But the first couple, it was like, you know what? We're not getting them. They're not really talking yet. So we got to take the gloves off and get them going. Once they get going, man, you can't shut them up, which is great. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of good. I do get a lot of good coaching, and guidance and direction, which
he doesn't.
Really
he needs very little. He needs very little.
But it's one of those, hey, we need something lighter, something a little on the darker. We need to hear a little more, whatever it is, and then you realize, okay, that we can, when you hit that point where, and when you just know, and Dean, it from your books, when you get to that one point, there's that one little bit that somebody says, and they want to talk now.
One of the things that we did it in this book, and we did it in the nurse's book, is I would color code these things simple-mindedly, black or pink. And pink meant it's kind of uplifting, and black meant it's pretty damn dark. And I wanted to be careful that we didn't put too many dark ones in a row.
Mm-hmm.
so that there really was a nice flow, which represented the experience. But, you just don't, especially with the nurses, you get 5 or 6 of these where it's like, oh, man, no, because several of them, because it can be very uplifting as well, inspirational. And we wanted that mix.
Yeah. This book did feel like an appropriate mix of both pathos and beauty.
There's a lot of humor in there too. I mean, sometimes you got to be funny to survive.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to get that same kind of thing from the cops, especially. There's going to be some funny stuff coming out of them. I will recommend maybe book 4. You go after journalists. They
go after them.
Well, as a book, the way you're doing cops, might be an interesting group.
Yeah, we'd already thought of that just in case the lawsuit's coming.
Well, we're so delighted to have you guys. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you is I'm not sure how much feedback you receive from people that are reading your book, but I've received a lot of the feedback. I've read this book, loved it, and encouraged people to read it. And there was a man that I was working with 8 years ago who had this incredible story about his time in Iraq. And he told me, I can't write it. I just can't write it. I can't get it down. And he read your book and he called me up and he said, I'm ready. And we've been working on it. And
good.
Life changer for him. And then the other story I wanted to share with you was another person who was struggling with PTSD, that every time I asked how he was doing, he told me, fine. I said, read the book. He called me up and he said, I haven't been doing fine. And he revealed that he was suicidal, and he revealed that he was getting help. So I just wanted you guys to know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. That's just a spectacular thing to hear. Oh, and we've heard it before, which is that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dean, for a
Dean,
wonderful
thank
interview.
you. That was great. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Great job.
It was great fun. It was an honor to be with you two.
Thank you for writing this book. I absolutely loved it. I read it as well. I was crying within I think the first 3 pages. And, just crying like tears of appreciation and love for these heroes, these men and women who put their lives on the line for us. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful reminder. I also want to remind all of you listening and watching right now that you can win a copy of this book. If there's still time, it's first come, first served, but there should be a link right in the Facebook. If there isn't, it will be in a couple seconds. Get a copy of this book, buy it at Warwick's or wherever books are sold. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Matt,
having
as always, good to see you. I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, you too, Jim. Be safe up there. Enjoy your bachelorhood.
Come
it's
back,
as bad
you guys.
as Iraq here, I'll tell you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you both.
Yeah, we want to say we'll see you next year.
Well, we hope to. We really hope to.
Right?
Yeah, that book, I have received more personal calls about, just saying, writing aside, let me tell you how this shifted my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so, I just wanted to make sure that they heard that and got that how much it can be an impact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's really what storytelling is, right? There's a book out there for everything I think we need, right? We might not even know that we need it at the time, but books are so powerful. This one indeed.
Yeah, one person told me, I don't think I'm ever going to write, but they said what I wanted to say. So it felt very cathartic in that way as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Not everyone has a book in them. I mean, I would like to think everyone has a book in them, but at the very least, if you don't write it, then you at least got to find it and read it. And it's not just books. I mean, we're all about storytelling. That encompasses screenplay writing and, movies and cartoons and graphic novels and poetry and theater and, all storytelling affects us. And we find in music too, I mean, music changed my life, right? When I found it, those words spoke to me on a level that I really needed at the time in my life. And storytelling is just the most beautiful thing.